Wait, reads do. Herbert West Reanimator. Chapter 1, From the Dark. Of Herbert West, who was my friend in college and afterlife, I can speak only with extreme terror. This terror is not due altogether to the sinister manner of his recent disappearance, but was engendered by the whole nature of his life work. It first gained its acute form more than 17 years ago, when we were in the third year of our course at the, oh my god, Miskatonic University Medical School in Arkham. You mean where Batman lives? While he was with me, the wonder and diabolism, I don't know how to say these words, of his experiments fascinated me utterly, and I was his closest companion. Now that he is gone and the spell is broken, the actual fear is greater. Memories and possibilities are ever more hideous than realities. The first horrible incident of our acquaintance was the greatest shock I had ever experienced. It is only with reluctance that I repeat it. As I have said, it happened when we were in the medical school, where West had already made himself notorious through his wild theories on the nature of death and the possibility of overcoming it artificially. His views, which were widely ridiculed by the faculty and his fellow students, hinged on the essentially mechanistic nature of life, and concerned means for operating the organic machinery of mankind by calculated chemical action after the failure of natural processes. Wow, I understood that. In his experiments with various animating solutions, he's making zombies? Alright. In his experiments with various animating solutions, he had killed and treated immense numbers of rabbits, guinea pigs, cats, dogs, and monkeys. Oh, this is getting badly. Till he had become the prime nuisance of the college. Several times he had actually obtained signs of life in animals supposedly dead, in many cases violent signs. But he soon saw that the perfection of the process, if indeed possible, would necessarily involve a lifetime of research. It likewise became clear that since the same solution never worked alike on different organic species, he would require human subjects for further and more specialized progress. It was here that he first came into conflict with the college authorities and was debarred from future experiments by no less than a dignitary than the dean of the medical school himself, the learned and benevolent Dr. Alan Halsey, whose work in behalf of the stricken is recalled by every old resident of Arkham. Don't make the Batman joke again. I had always been exceptionally tolerant of West's pursuits, and we frequently discussed his theories, whose ramifications and corollaries were almost infinite. Holding with, oh my god, that all my life is a chemical and physical process, and that the so-called soul is a myth. My friend believed that artificial reanimation of the dead can depend only on the condition of the tissues, and that unless actual decomposition had set in, a corpse fully equipped with organs may, with suitable measures, be set going again in a peculiar fashion known as life. That the psychic or intellectual life might be impaired by the slight deterioration of sensitive brain cells, which even a short period of death would be apt to cause. West fully realized it had been his hope to find a reagent which would restore vitality before the actual advent of death, and only repeated failures on animals had shown him that the natural and artificial life emotions were incompatible. He then sought extreme freshness in his specimens, injecting his solutions into the blood immediately after the extinction of life. It was a circumstance which made the professors so curiously skeptical. See, they spell it weird. For they felt the true death had not occurred in any case. They did not stop to view the matter closely and reasoningly. It was not long after the faculty had his work that the West confided to me his resolution to get fresh human bodies in some manner and continue in secret the experiments he could no longer perform openly. And that's how the zombie apocalypse happens, my children. My dear friends. To hear him discussing the ways and means was rather ghastly, for at the college we had never procured an anatomical specimen ourselves. Whenever the morgue proved inadequate, two Locals, not gonna say the next word, attended to this matter as they were seldom questioned. West was then a small, slender, spectacled youth with delicate features, yellow hair, pale blue eyes, and a soft voice. It was uncanny to hear him dwelling on the relative merits of church, cemetery, and the potter's field. We finally decided on the potter's field because practically everybody in church was embalmed, a thing of course ruins to West's researches. I was by this time his active and enthralled assistant and helped him make all his decisions, not only concerning the source of bodies, but concerning a suitable place for our loathsome work. It was I who thought of the deserted Chapman farmhouse beyond Meadow Hill, where we fitted up on the ground floor an operating room and a laboratory, each with dark curtains to conceal our midnight doings. Excuse me. The place was far from any road and in sight of no other house, yet precautions were nonetheless necessary, since rumors of strange lights, started by chance nocturnal roamers, would soon bring disaster on our enterprise. It was agreed to call the whole thing a chemical laboratory if discovery should occur. Gradually, we equipped our sinister haunt of science with materials either purchased in Boston or quietly borrowed from the college. Materials carefully made unrecognizable save to expert eyes, and provided spades and picks for the many burials we should have to make in the cellar. At the college, we used an incinerator, but the apparatus was too costly for our unauthorized laboratory. It's a whole bunch of illegal. Bodies were always a nuisance, even the small guinea pig bodies from the slight clandestine experiments in West's room at the boarding house. We followed the local death notices like ghouls, for our specimens demanded particular qualities. What we wanted were corpses interred soon after death and without artificial preservation, preferably free from malforming disease and certainly with all organs present. Accident victims were our best hope. Not for many weeks did we hear of anything suitable, though we talked with morgue and hospital authorities in the college's entrance as often as we could without exciting suspicion. We found that the college had first choice in every case, so that it might be necessary to remain in Arkham during the summer when only the limited summer school classes were held. In the end, though, luck favored us, for one day we heard of an almost ideal case in the Potter's Field. A brawny young workman drowned only the morning before in Sumner's Pond, and buried at the town's expense without delay or embalming. That afternoon we found the new grave, and determined to begin work soon after midnight. It was a repulsive task that we undertook in the black small hours, even though we lacked at the time the special horror of graveyards, which later experiences brought to us. We carried spades and oil-dark lanterns, for although electric torches were then manufactured, they were not as satisfactory as the tungsten of today. The process of unearthing was slow and sordid. It might have been gruesomely poetical if we had been artists instead of scientists. And we were glad when our spades struck wood. When the pine box was fully uncovered, Wes scrambled down and removed the lid, dragging out and propping up the contents. I reached down and hauled the contents out of the grave, and then both toiled hard to restore the spot to its former appearance. The affair made us rather nervous, especially the stiff form and vacant face of our first trophy, but we managed to remove all traces of our visit. When we had patted down the last shovelful of earth, we put the specimen in a canvas sack and set out for the old Chapman place beyond Meadow Hill. On an improvised dissecting table in an old farmhouse, by the light of a powerful... Oh, I know how to say this word. An oil lamp. That's all I got. I can't say it. The specimen was not very spectral looking. It had been a sturdy and apparently unimaginative use of wholesome, he's a pleb type, large-framed, gray-eyed, and brown hair, a sound animal without psychological why can't I pronounce it? Forget it. And probably having vital process of the simplest and healthiest sort. Now, with the eyes closed, it looked more asleep than dead, although the expert test of my friend soon left no doubt on that score. We had at last what West had always longed for, a real dead man of the ideal kind, ready for the solution as prepared according to the most careful calculations and theories for human use. The tension on our part became very great. We knew that there was scarcely a chance for anything like complete success, and could not avoid hideous fears as possible grotesque results of partial animation, especially where we were apprehensive concerning the mind and impulses of the creature, since in the space following death, some of the more delicate cerebral cells might have been suffered deterioration. I myself still had some curious notions about the traditional soul of a man, and felt in awe at the secrets that might be told by one returning from the dead. I wondered what sights this placid youth might have been in inaccessible spheres, and what he would relate if fully restored to life. But my wonder was not overwhelming, since for the first part I shared it from materialism of my friend. He was calmer than I, as he forged a large quantity of his fluid into the vein of the body's arm, immediately blinding the incision securely. The waiting was gruesome, but West never faltered. Every now and then he applied the stethoscope of the specimen, and bore the negative results philosophically. Forget it. After about 3/4 of an hour without the least sign of life, he disappointingly pronounced the solution inadequate, but determined to make the most of his opportunity and try one change in the formula before disposing of his ghastly prize. We had the afternoon dug a grave in the cellar, and would fill it by dawn, for although we had fixed the lock on the house, we wished to shun even the remotest risk of a ghoulish discovery. Besides, the body would not be even approximately fresh the next night, so taking the solitary, acetone lamp into the adjacent laboratory, we left our silent guests on the slab of in the dark, and bent every energy to the mixing of a new solution. The weighing and measuring, supervised, that's spelled differently, by West with an almost fanatical care. The awful event was very sudden and wholly unexpected. I was pouring something from one test tube to another, and West was busy over the alcohol blast lamp, which had to answer for a Bunsen burner in this gasless, when from the pitch black room we had left, there burst the most appalling and demonic succession of cries, and either of us had ever heard. Not more unutterable could have been the chaos of hellish sound if the pit itself had opened to release the agony of the damned, for in one inconceivable cacophony was centered on the supernal terror and unnatural despair of animate nature. Human it could not have been. It is not to make much such sounds, and without a thought of our late employment or its possible discovery, both West and I leaped to the nearest window like stricken animals, overturning tubes, lamp, and retorts, and vaulting madly into the starred abyss of the rural night. I think we screamed ourselves as we stumbled frantically toward the town, though as we reached the outskirts we put on a semblance of restraint, just enough to seem like belated revelers staggering home from a debauchery. We did not separate, but managed to get to West's room, where we whispered with the gas up until mid-dawn. By then, we had calmed ourselves a little with rational theories and plans for investigation, so that way we could sleep through the day, classes being disregarded. But that evening, 2 items in the paper, wholly unrelated, made it again impossible for us to sleep. The old deserted Chapman house had inexplicably burned to an amorphous heap of ashes that we could understand because of the upset lamp. Also, an attempt had been made to disturb a new grave in the potter's field, as if by futile and spadeless clawing at the earth. Was he trying to get back? That we could not understand, for we had patted down the mole very carefully, and for 17 years after that West would look frequently over his shoulder and complain of fancied footsteps behind him. Now he has disappeared. That ends chapter 1. I'm going to take a quick stretch break. I just need to go run, use the restroom really quick. I encourage you to get up and stretch and do a thing like a chicken wing. I also encourage you to get up and grab some snacks if you want, some water maybe, and I will be right back. Here's my awesomely awesome, you know what, I'm just going to leave this up. I'll be right back, chat. Right back, chat. I'm back, chat. Sorry about that. Okay. Just gonna jump back into it again. Chapter 2, The Plague Demon. I shall never forget that hideous summer 16 years ago when, like a noxious from the halls of typhoid. Oh, thank you, Sai. That means a lot. Typhoid stalked leeringly through Arkham. It is by that satanic Scrooge that most recall the year, for truly terror brooded with bat wings over the piles of coffins in the tombs of Church Cemetery. Yet for me, there is a greater horror in that time, a horror known to me alone, now that Herbert West has disappeared. West and I were doing postgraduate work in summer classes at the medical school of Miskatonic University, and my friend had attained a wide notoriety because of his experiments leading toward the revivification of the dead. After the scientific slaughter of uncounted small animals and freakish work had stopped by order of our skeptical dean, Dr. Alan Halsey. Though West had continued to perform certain secret tests in his dingy boarding house room, and had on one terrible and unforgettable occasion taken a human body from its grave in a potter's field to a deserted farmhouse beyond Meadow Hill. I was with him on the odious occasion, and saw him inject into the still veins the elixir which he thought would be some extent restore life's chemical and physical processes. It ended horribly, in a delirium of fear which we gradually came to attribute to our own overwrought nerves, and West had never afterward been able to shake off a maddening sensation of being haunted and hunted. The body had not been quite fresh enough. It is obvious that to restore normal mental attributes to a body must be fresh indeed, and the burning of the old house had prevented us from burying the thing. It would have been better if we could have known it was underground. After that experience, West had dropped his researches for some time, but as the zeal of the born scientist slowly returned, he again became impromptu with the college faculty, pleading for the use of the dissecting room and of fresh human specimens for the work he regarded as so overwhelmingly important. His pleas, however, were wholly in vain, for the decision of Dr. Halsey was inflexible, and the other professors all endorsed the verdict of their leader. In the radical theory of reanimation, they saw nothing but the immature vagaries of a youthful enthusiast whose slight form, yellow hair, speckled blue eyes, and soft voice gave hint of the supernormal, almost diabolical power of the cold brain within. I can see him now as he was then, and I shiver. He grew sterner of face, but never elderly, and now Sefton Asylum has had the mishap, and West has vanished. West clashed disagreeably with Dr. Halsey near the end of our last undergraduate term in a wordly dispute that did less credit to him than to the kindly dean in point of curiosity. He felt that he was needlessly and irrationally in a supremely great work, a work which he could of course conduct to suit himself in later years, in which he wished just so you guys know, I am skipping over certain words that are inappropriate nowadays, that are socially inappropriate now. So I just want to let everybody know that if I skip a word, I either can't say it or it's socially inappropriate. Sorry. That the tradition-bound elders should have ignored his singular result on animals and persist in their denial of the possibility of reanimation was inexplicably disgusting and almost incomprehensible. To a youth of West's logical temperament, only greater maturity could help him understand the chronic mental limitations of the professor-doctor type, the product of generations of pathetic puritanism, kindly, consistent, and sometimes gentle and amiable, yet always narrow, intolerant, custom-ridden, and lacking in perspective. Age has more charity for these incomplete yet highly souled characters, whose worst real vices timidity, and who are ultimately punished by general ridicule for their intellectual sins. Sins like, oh my god, Calvinism, anti-Darwinism, I don't know how to say that one, it sounds German, and every sort of, I don't know how to say it. There's a lot of isms in this. And legislation. West, young despite his marvelous scientific acquirements, had scant patience with good Dr. Halsey and his colleagues, and nursed an increasingly resentment coupled with the desire to prove his theories to these obtuse worthies in some striking and dramatic fashion. Like most youths, he indulged in elaborate daydreams of revenge, triumph, and final magnanimous forgiveness. Got it. And then had come the Scrooge, grinning and lethal from the nightmare caverns of Tartarus. West and I had graduated about the time of its beginning, but had remained for additional work at the summer school, so that we were in Arkham when it broke with full demonic fury upon the town. Oh, though not as yet licensed physicians, we now had our degrees, and we were pressed frantically into public service as the numbers of the stricken grew. The situation was almost management, and deaths ensued too frequently for the local undertakers fully to handle. Burials without embalming were made in rapid succession, and even the church cemetery receiving tomb was crammed with coffins of the unembalmed dead. The circumstance was not without effect on West, who thought often of the irony of the situation. So many fresh specimens, yet none of his persecuted research. We were frightfully overworked, and the terrific mental and nervous strain made my friend brood morbidly. But West's gentle enemies were no less harassed with duties. College had all but closed, and every doctor of the medical faculty was helping to fight the typhoid plague. Dr. Halsey, in particular, had distinguished himself in this sacrificing service, applying his extreme skill with wholehearted energy to cases which many others shunned because of danger or apparent hopelessness. Before a month was over, the fearless dean had become a popular hero, though he seemed What?
Your anus hurt?
Dude, get out of here.
I know.
I'm streaming. Go. Okay. No, I'm not. Alright, let me see where we were at here. Thank you, Sai. Thank you. And taking advantage of the disorganization of both college work and municipal health regulations, he managed to get a recently deceased body smuggled into the university dissecting room one night. How in the hell? Did we miss something? No, the dean was, no. Oh, yeah. West could not withhold admiration for the fortitude of his foe, but because of this was even more determined to prove the truth of his amazing doctrines, taking advantage of the disorganization of both college of his amazing of work and municipal health regulations, he managed to get a recently deceased body smuggled into the university dissecting room one night, and in my presence injected a new modification of his solution. The thing actually opened its eyes, but only stared at the ceiling with a look of soul-petrifying horror before collapsing into an earnestness from which nothing could rouse it. West said it was not fresh enough. The hot summer air does not favor corpses. That time we were almost caught before we incinerated the thing, and West doubted the advisability of repeating his daring misuse of the college laboratory. The peak of the epidemic was reached in August. West and I were almost dead, and Dr. Halsey did die on the 14th. Oh! My God, they weren't joking. The students all attended the hasty funeral on the 15th and bought an impressive wreath, though the latter was quite overshadowed by the tribute sent by wealthy Arkham citizens and by municipality itself. It was almost a public affair. Hey, Cheeky, how you doing? I'll finish this chapter and then we'll sit and talk for a minute. Arkham citizens and by the municipality itself. It was almost a public affair, for the dean had surely been a public benefactor. After the atonement, we were all somewhat depressed and spent the afternoon at the bar of the commercial house, where West, though shaken by the death of his chief opponent, chilled the rest of us with references to his notorious theories. Most of the students went home or to various duties as the evening advanced, but West persuaded me to aid him in making a night of it. West's landlady saw us arrive at his room about 2 in the morning with a third man between us, and told her husband that we had all evidently dined and wined rather well. Apparently this acidulous matron was right, for about 3 a.m. the whole house was aroused by cries coming from West's room, where when they broke down the door, they found the two of us unconscious on the blood-stained floor, beaten, scratched, and mauled, and with the broken remnants of West's bottle. And instruments around us. Only an open window told what had become of our assailant, and many wondered how he himself had fared after the terrific leap strewn from the second story of the lawn, which he must have made. There were some strange garments in the room, but West, upon regaining consciousness, said they did not belong to the stranger, but were specimens collected for bacteriological analysis in the course of investigations on the transmission of germ disease. He ordered them burnt as soon as possible in the fireplace. To the police, we both declared ignorance of our late companion's identity. He was, West nervously said, a stranger who we had met at some downtown bar of uncertain location. We'd all been rather jovial, and West and I did not wish to have our pugnacious companion hunted down. That same night saw the beginning of the second Arkham horror, the horror that to me eclipsed the plague itself. Church Cemetery was the scene of a terrible killing, a watchman having been clawed to death in a manner not only too hideous for description, but raising a doubt as to the human agency of the deed. The victim had been alive considerably after midnight. The dawn revealed the unutterable thing. The manager of a circus at the neighboring town of Bolton was questioned, but he swore that no beast had any time escaped from its cage. Those who found the body noted a trail of blood leading to the receiving tomb, where a small pool of red lay on the concrete just outside the gate. A fainter trail led away toward the woods, but it soon gave out. The next night devils danced on the roof of Arkham, and unnatural madness howled in the wind. Through the fevered town had crept a curse, which some said was greater than the plague, and which some whispered was the embodied demon soul of the plague itself. 8 houses were entered by a nameless thing, which strewed red death in its wake. In all, 17 maimed and shapeless remnants of bodies were left behind by the voiceless, sadistic monster that crept abroad. A few persons had half seen it in the dark, and said it was white, like a malformed ape or I can't. Morphic fiend. And not left behind quite all that had attacked, for sometimes I had been hungry. The number I had killed was 14. 3 of the bodies had been stricken in homes and had not been alive. On the third night, frantic bands of searchers led by the police captured it in a house on Crane Street near the campus that had organized the quest with care, keeping in touch by means of volunteer telephone stations, and when someone in the college district had reported hearing a scratching at a shuttered window, the net was quickly spread. On account of the general alarm and precautions, there was only 2 more victims, and the capture was effected without major casualties. The thing was finally stopped by a bullet, though not a fatal one, and was rushed to the local hospital amidst universal excitement and loathing. For it had been a man. This much was clear despite the nauseous eyes, the voiceless, and the demonic savagery. They dressed its wound and carried it to the asylum at Sefton, where it had beat its head against the walls of a padded cell for 16 years until a recent mishap, when it escaped under circumstances that few like to mention. What had been disgusted the researchers of Arkham was the thing that they noticed when the monster's face was clean, the mocking, unbelievable resemblance to a learned and self-sacrificing martyr who had been entombed but 3 days before. The late Dr. Alan Halsey, public benefactor and dean of the medical school of Miskatonic University, they made their dean come back as a zombie? To the vanished Herbert West, and to me, the disgust and horror were supreme. I shudder tonight as I think of it, shudder even more than I did this morning when West muttered through his bandages, "Damn it, it wasn't quite fresh enough." And that ends chapter 2. So we're going to take a quick little break here so that way we can chat. Let's see how much we have more. Oh my god, we have a bit. Yeah, we'll probably finish this one. I don't know how long we'll have, but we'll see when we get there. But how you doing, Cheeky? I do apologize for that. Sorry if you heard that. I do want to apologize. That was my dad. I need to get my own fucking place. I'm on the verge of tears because of that. Although I'm very good with joking, I'm very good with joking and jokes like that, and it's fine. It's just, I've told him multiple times, he knows when I go live, he knows when I do shit, and he doesn't take it into granted, and he texted me. So I'm literally on the verge of tears right now. Oh, apparently he was trying to make a planet joke. Thank you, Sai. He was trying to make a stupid planet joke because he was watching space stuff. But anyways, Cheeky, who's your favorite artist? Or, not artist. What am I doing? Who's your favorite author? It's an interesting stream you first come in on there, Hasai. I just kind of want to talk for a few minutes to calm down. Am I reading way too fast? I've always told you guys to tell me to slow down if I'm reading too fast. I know I have a tendency of talking too fast, so I have a tendency of doing that as well when I'm reading. If I'm reading too fast, let me know. I will slow down. But I'll slow down. I'll try and slow down. Just tell me, like, to slow down if I need to. Cheeky, I did get your email, and, I think it's a fantastic idea to do that. So, I'll post in like Discord and stuff like that. Like a channel for everybody to like upload their stories and stuff like that. And then maybe like if I don't have a book or if we don't feel like reading any of these books, we can see it. We can sit and read people's own horror stories. I am enjoying reading this. I think it's pretty cool. I didn't realize that this was a zombie one. Like, this was a zombie story. Or that's what it's seeming to me, at least. Let me type in my socials so that way if anybody new wants to join Discord or Twitter, then you can. I don't know if the YouTube channel works. Just let me know. I tried fixing it, but for some reason I can't actually get myself my own YouTube channel link for some weird ass reason. Yeah, just a page of fortune. I think it'd be pretty cool. I mean, I think it would be kind of cool to see what everybody's different view of horror would be. And what scares them to death. But then again, I also wanted to do that as well. I wanted to come up with a journal series as well. Oh, you want to see the words in your mind? That's fair. That's fair. I'm gonna eat my cookie. I'm sorry, chat. I need my cookie. I went to Chick-fil-A yesterday after my doctor's appointment because, you know, I deserve it. And, I picked up some cookies. Yeah, I'm gonna eat my cookies because I'm sad. I hate living here. Chat, you just saw why I need to move. Barters in here. This stupid planet joke. Who wants a chocolate chip cookie? If you're allergic to anything, I have an M&M cookie, but I don't think that's much better. You weren't expecting this? Like I said, I only did one other reading stream, and it was Alice in Wonderland. And I was actually kind of turned off from it, from doing reading streams, because I had this really weird creep come in. And like, he was nice at the beginning, and then he got really creepy and was like, hey, can you personally read to me? And I was like, no. And we're like, dude, I'm reading on stream right now. And then he's like, well, I'll pay you this much money if you read to me personally. And I think he wanted me to call him or call me, so that way he can get his jollies off. Because he kept asking how old I was. I think he was like a creeper. That sounds fun, Cheeky. I deserve this cookie chop. It's only half a cookie, so I'm almost done. Did I miss Rebecca's podcast? I feel like I did. Yeah, only $40 worth of book? Come on, ZD. Come on. Get good. Well, the biggest one was the Lovecraft book, which I bought for $11. I bought These are the only books I have in my room right now. But oh, so the ninth. Okay, cool. I bought Resident Evil. It's just Resident Evil 0, the game, in book form, basically. Okay, I don't want to show this book on stream because I don't know if my boyfriend's like lurking in chat. Because I know it's his lunchtime, so not showing your present. But it's a book that by an author that he likes. Not telling. I got 2 like Vampire Diaries books, but it's the spin-off series of the Secret Circle one. I got Angel and Buffy books, the TV shows. I got God, what's it? Yeah, Percy Jackson, but it's one of the spin-off series for that one. I haven't read any of them. I'm just like, oh, that one's $2. Let me just pick it up now. It's fine. So on and so forth. Sorry. I bought a lot of books recently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? And then there's like one more book. You think of me as Willow? Yeah. No, I'm not Buffy. I can tell you that right now. I'm not Buffy. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I remember whenever they would like try and entice you with like little things like, oh, you get like 6 Flags tickets if you read this many books, and you know, eventually just start kind of lying about which books you read. And then what was the other one? You know, one of our local grocery, well, I say local, one of our grocery stores that's like Texas only grocery store. It's called HEB, and they do a they do that with kids. It's like, okay, the more you read, the more that you can like buy candy and stuff like that. So, you know, it's kind of that thing. Oh god, I'm already stressed out and I want to cry. I'm already checked out for the day. Fuck. God dang it. I'm actually really upset now. And it's not just that of him doing that. It's because he's already piss poor drunk at 1:30 in the afternoon. This is why I don't drink alcohol, chat. And drink it responsibly. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear it too. It's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard. But we're gonna continue reading. Move on from that debacle of hell. Okay. Chapter 3. 6 Shots by Midnight. Moving on. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna ignore what the hell just happened because he texted me. He's like, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna go take a nap. Please forgive me. Whatever. I don't care anymore. I'm just tired of families an asshole anyway. 6 Shots by Midnight. It is uncommon to fire all 6 shots of a revolver with great suddenness when one would probably be sufficient, but many things in life of Herbert West were uncommon. It is, for instance, not often that a young physician leaving college is obliged to conceal the principles which guide his selection of a home and office. Yet that was the case with Herbert West. when he and I obtained our degrees at the medical school of Miskatonic University and sought to relieve our poverty by setting up as general practitioners, we took great care not to say that we chose our house because it was fairly well isolated and as near as possible to the potter's field. Without a cause, nor indeed was ours, for our requirements were those resulting from a life work distinctly unpopular. Outwardly, we were doctors only, but beneath the surface were aims of far greater and more terrible moment. For the essence of Herbert West's existence was a quest amid blank and formidable realms of the unknown, in which he hoped to uncover the secret life and restore to a perpetual animation the graveyard's cold clay. Such a quest demands strange materials, among them fresh human bodies, and in order to keep supplied with these indispensable things, one must live quietly and not far from a place of informal interment. West and I had met in college, and I had been the only one to sympathize with his hideous experiments. Gradually, I had come to his inseparable assistant, and now that we were out of college, we had to keep together. It was not easy to find a good opening for two doctors in company, but finally the influence of the university secured us a practice in Bolton, a factory town near Arkham, the seat of the college. The Bolton Worsted Mills are the largest in the Miskatonic Valley, and their polyglot, employees are never popular as patients with the local physicians. I don't even know what that word means. We chose our house with the greatest care, seizing at last on a rather run-down cottage near the end of Pond Street, 5 numbers from the closest neighbor, and separated from the local potter's field by only a stretch of meadow land, bisected by a narrow neck of rather dense forests which lies to the north. The distance was greater than we wished, but we could get no nearer house without going on the other side of the field, wholly out of the factory district. We were not much displeased, however, since there were no people between us and our sinister source of supplies. The walk was a trifle long, but we could haul our silent specimens undisturbed. Our practice was surprisingly large from the very first, large enough to please most young doctors, and large enough to prove a bore and a burden to students whose real interest lay elsewhere. The mill hands were of somewhat turbulent inclinations, and besides their many natural needs, their frequent clashes and stabbings of phrase gave us plenty to do. I don't want to live here. This sounds horrible. But what actually absorbed our minds was a secret laboratory we had fitted up in the cellar. Oh, of course you do. The laboratory with this long table under the electric lights, where in the small hours of the morning we often injected West's various solutions into the veins. Mine become nasally because I want to cry. And we dragged from the potter's field. West was experimenting madly to find something which would start man's vital motions anew after they had been stopped by the thing we call death, but had encountered the most ghastly obstacles. The solution had to be differently compounded for different types. What would serve for guinea pigs would not serve for human beings, and different human specimens required large modifications. The bodies had to be exceedingly fresh, or the slight decomposition of brain tissue would render perfect reanimation impossible. Indeed, the greatest problem was to get them fresh enough. West had had horrible experiences during his secret college researches with corpses of doubtful vintage. The results of partial or imperfect animation were much more hideous than were the total failures, and we both held fearsome recollections of such things ever since our first demonic session. I am 90% sure I'm saying that wrong, but just go with it. In the deserted farmhouse on Meadow Hill in Arkham, we had felt a brooding presence, and West, though a calm, blonde, blue-eyed, scientific Ottoman in most respects, often confessed to a shuddering sensation of stealthy pursuit. He half felt that he was followed, a psychological delusion of shaken nerves, enhanced by the undeniably disturbing fact that at least one of our reanimated specimens was still alive. A frightful, carnivorous thing in a padded cell of Sefton. There, then there was another, our first, whose exact fate we had never learned. We had fair luck with specimens in Bolton, which, much better than in Arkham. We had not been settled a week before we had an accident victim on the very night of burial. It made it open its eyes with an amazingly rational expression before the solution failed. It had lost an arm. If it had been a perfect body, we might have succeeded better. Between then and the next January, we secured 3 more. 1 total failure, 1 case of marked muscular motion, and 1 rather shivery pour. And 1 shivery thing. It rose of itself and uttered a sound. Then came a period when luck was poor. Instruments fell off, and those that did occur were of specimens either too diseased or too maimed for use. We kept track of all the deaths and their circumstances with systematic care. One March night, however, we unexpectedly obtained a specimen which did not come from the potter's field. In Bolton, the prevailing spirit of I can say it in my head, but I can't actually pronunciate it. Whatever. And unlawed the sport of boxing with the usual result. Ill-conducted bouts among the mill workers were common, and occasionally professional talent, evidently with professional talent of low grade was imported. This late winter night, there had been such a match, evidently with disastrous results. Since 2 timorous Poles had come to us with incoherently whispered, to attend to a very secret and desperate case. We followed them to an abandoned barn, where the remnants of a crowd of frightened foreigners were watching a silent form on the floor. The match had been between Kid O'Brien, a lubberly and now quaking youth with a most hooked nose, and Buck Robinson, the Harlem Smoke. The man had been knocked out, and in a moment's examination shewed us that he would permanently remain so. He was a loathsome, with abnormally long arms, which I cannot help calling, and a face that conjured up thoughts of unspeakable, skipping that entire sentence. The body must have looked even worse than life. Oh my god, skipping, hold on. Jenny, if you're still here, you were not wrong. Girl, there's a lot of racist stuff in here. Fear was upon the whole pitiful crowd for what they did not know, what the law would exact of them if the affair were not hushed up. And there was a fight between 2 dudes, and one of them got knocked out. That's all you need to know. They were grateful when West, in spite of involuntary shudders, offered to get rid of the thing quietly for a purpose I knew too well. There was a bright moonlight over the snowless landscape, but we dressed it and carried it home between us through the deserted streets and meadows, as we had carried a similar thing one horrible night in Arkham. We approached the house from the field in the rear, took the specimen in the back door and down the cellar stairs, and prepared for the usual experiment. Our fear of the police was absurdly great, though we had timed our trip to avoid the solitary patrolman of the section. The result was wearily anticlimactic. Ghastly as our prize appeared, it was wholly unresponsive to every solution we injected in its arm. Solutions prepared from experience with other specimens. Again, I'm paraphrasing some stuff. Wow, this dude was racist. So as the hour grew dangerously near to dawn, we did as we had to done with the others. Dragged the body across the meadows to the neck of the woods near the potter's field, and buried it there in the best sort of grave the frozen ground would furnish. The grave was not very deep, but fully as good as that of the previous specimen. The thing which had risen of itself and uttered a word. In the light of our dark lanterns, we carefully covered it with leaves and dead vines, fairly certain that the police would never find it in a forest so dim and dense. The next day, I was increasingly apprehensive about the police, for a patient brought rumors of a suspected fight and death. West had still another source of worry, for he had been called in the afternoon to a case which ended very threateningly. An Italian woman had become hysterical over her missing child, a lad of 5 who had strayed off early in the morning and failed to appear for dinner. and had developed symptoms highly alarming in view of an always weak heart. I'd be frantic too. No. It was a very foolish hysteria. Foolish hysteria? Child's got a weak heart. No. That's not foolish hysteria. I'm gonna beat the shit out of these people. Just piss me off. Alright. For the boy who had often run away before, whatever. But Italians are exceedingly superstitious, and this woman seemed as much harassed by omens as by facts. After 7 o'clock in the evening, she had died. The fuck? And her frantic husband had made a frightful scene in his efforts to kill West, whom he wildly blamed for not saving her life. Friends had held him when he drew a stiletto. That's a sword, isn't it? Not a shoe? But West departed amidst his inhuman shrieks, curses, and oaths of vengeance. In his latest affliction, the fellow seemed to have forgotten his child, who was still missing as the night advanced. There was some talk of searching the woods, but most of the family's friends were busy with the dead woman and the screaming man. Although the nervous strain upon West would have been... I'm sorry, I got to talking faster again. Had been tremendous. Thoughts of the police and of the mad Italian both weighed heavily. We retired about 11, but I did not sleep well. Yeah. Bolton had a surprisingly good police force for so small a town, and I could not help fearing the mess which would ensue if the affair of the night before were ever tracked down. It might mean the end of our local work, and perhaps prison for both West and me. I did not like those rumors of a fight which were floating about. After the clock had struck 3, the moon shone in my eyes, but I turned over without rising to pull down the shade. Then came the steady rattling at the back door. I lay still, and somewhat dazed, but before long heard West rap on my door. He was clad in dressing gown and slippers, and had in his hands a revolver and electric flashlight. From the revolver, I knew he was thinking more of the crazed Italian than of the police. "We'd better both go," he whispered. "It wouldn't do not to answer it anyway, and it may be a patient. It'd be like one of those fools to try the back door." So we both went down the stairs on tiptoe, with a fear partly justified and partly that which comes only from the soul of the weird small hours. The rattling continued, growing somewhat louder. When we reached the door, I cautiously unbolted it and threw it open, and as the moon seemed revealing down on the form silhouetted... It's fine. West did a peculiar thing. Despite the obvious danger of attracting noise and bringing down on our heads the dreaded police investigation, a thing which after all was mercilessly averted by the relative isolation of our cottage, my friend suddenly, excitedly, unnecessarily emptied all 6 chambers of his revolver into the nocturnal visitor. For that visitor was neither Italian nor policeman. Looming hideously against the spectral moon was a gigantic misshapen thing, not to be imagined, save in nightmares. A glassy-eyed apparition, nearly on all fours, covered with bits of mold, leaves, and vines, foul with caked blood, and having between its glistening teeth a snow-white, terrible object terminating in a tiny hand. Oh! I was right, it's a zombie. That's what I said. I was like, to be fair, I wasn't racist back then, but now it's not socially appropriate to say some of these things, and I'm like, ooh, just skip that. Just kind of skip that. That's what I was saying earlier, Sai. I was saying that earlier too. Was that their latest little monster freaking ate the little kid. Yeah, go figure. Yeah. So that's why all of his works are in the public domain. That's why we're reading them today. I would show you guys like what I have, like the book and the cover and stuff like that, and the pictures inside, but I can't due to copyright reasons. I emailed the publisher, and the publisher they got back with me within like 10 minutes of me emailing them. Granted, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, but you know, they emailed me back like almost immediately, and they're like, yeah, hey, just so you know, all of his works are in public domain. I'm like, okay, I got that. And then he was like, yeah, just don't show the book. He's just like, any like front cover, word placement, photos in the book, you know, those are all copyrighted. So yeah, so it was amazing. That was like the first email I've actually ever gotten back from somebody. You know, and it's stupid because it's like, you know, people are like, well, you know, you need written permission to use this type, you know, like country music or rock music or, you know, any specific person's music, you know, in your stream. And I'm like, that's cool. Let me email them. You know, I emailed a couple people. I'm like, hey, is it okay if I use, you know, your music during while I stream? Blah, 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 blah. Written permission, rights, whatever. And they're like, I never got an email back from any of them. And that's why streamers can't actually do that. And it's frustrating as hell. And I think Spotify and Pandora need to make like a safe streaming thing that's not for music that's popular music. That's you know, from popular artists. And I know they can do it. It's just they're lazy and they don't want to do it. So there's that. This one's actually taking a bit of time. This is, so far we've been reading this particular one for about an hour, which isn't bad. Because I think what we'll do, asking local musicians. I mean, it's not bad, you know, asking local, you know, musicians and stuff like that. And I do encourage that. It's just sometimes, you know, you want to listen to your music. I want to listen to 500 Miles. I want to, you know, listen to 80s music. Because not a lot of people do 80s hair bands anymore. You know, I don't know. It's not like they sound like that anymore. And, you know, there's just certain songs that you want to listen to while you're drawing or doing art stuff or painting and stuff like that. So, it's just kind of like that. But, you know, I do, you know, I like local musicians. It's just, I want to kind of listen to my other music, too. Let's see. We have 4, 5, 6, about 2 more chapters? 4, 5, and 6, 3 technically. So, shouldn't take too long. I think we'll be at about 2.5 hours. Yeah. I think what we'll be able to do is, I think we'll be able to get through the Call of Cthulhu as well. I don't think that one. I think that'll be where we stop for the today. And I mean, we got like a third through the book, so that's not too bad. I was assuming it was gonna be pretty long too. I'm taking breaks to chat with you guys because I know I'm like, I just kind of read through a chapter, stop, chat, and whatnot with you guys. So it's gonna be very interesting trying to edit this. It's good. Oh, if you guys want to follow along, go here to this website and then go to his writings, and you guys are more than welcome to follow along. I am reading Herbert West, the Reanimator, as you can see up there, so that way you guys can follow along if you'd like. I also like the feedback because, you know, we can talk about what's happening within the chapter, what's gonna happen, you know, reflect on, you know, and guess what's gonna happen. I always like doing that. As I know I have my tendency of adding tidbits in when I'm reading. Oh, like, oh, that's gonna be in bad, you know, stuff like that. I do that even when I'm reading personally. I don't ever shut up. Ever. There's a point to where I record reading really bad Harlequin romance books because my boyfriend and I like to make fun of Hallmark movies, and so I read those and I record them and then I send them to him so that way he can listen to them while he's at work or working on stuff and stuff like that. And you know, it's just like, you know, I'm like reading through, I'm like, ooh, that just happened, ooh, that did not just happen, and so, you know, it's like we're actually having a conversation about it. So I'm glad that you guys like my reactions. That makes me feel like I'm not, you know, just adding my tidbit in and just being like, okay, well, people don't want to hear that kind of thing, so. I don't really want to say anything because I remember this one 30 minutes in. Oh, okay. You hate spoilers? Fair enough. We actually have a special command in chat. It's !redacted for no spoilers. My mod actually came up with it, and because whenever I was playing Danganronpa, he always was like, ha ha ha, this character's just kidding, redacted. And I'm like, okay, come on now, I need to know. So yeah, I'm glad that you guys are liking it. I will put it up on YouTube. It might, so if you guys want it earlier, you need to let me know, because if not, it's not gonna come out till February. Yes? Yes, yes. I actually got caught up with YouTube. So, for now. For now. Are there other books that I plan on reading? Yes. Besides finishing this entire book of, like, 7 books, there's, like, 8, 9 books. We've gone through Daggame, Ron Herbert, West, Call of Cthulhu, Dunwich, all of the H.P. Lovecraft's big ones. I also have Dracula and Frankenstein, which I've never personally read. Edgar Allan Poe. My boyfriend's got, like, the entire compendium of his short stories. What are the ones? As long as it's in the public domain, again, we can read it. So, if you have, like, any horror books, that's a good recommendation. Again, if it's in public domain, we can read it. So, we need to go back to Alice in Wonderland. Well, classic horror is what we're allowed to read. H.P. Lovecraft, Orson Welles, and some of the others. There's one other really big classic horror author that we can read, that we're allowed to read. Unless we get written permission from one of the authors, which I might have to take the time to do. If we come across a really good... Oh, shit, there is one really good horror one. Hangman's Curse. That's it. I don't remember the author's name. I'd have to go look at the book. Okay, but Hangman's Curse, I would love to read that. It was... I have the movie. There's actually a really bad B-rated movie of it. But... that one I would love to get my hands on again. Oh, God. I can't remember his name. But it was really, really good. But I'd have to, like, get a hold of the author and try and get a hold of them and be like, hey, can I do this? You know, it's like J.K. Rowling. If I wanted to read Harry Potter on stream, I would literally either have to be like, hey, J.K. Rowling, can I read this on stream? Is it okay? Should I just not post the video? I like when they post because I get to go to sleep while I read, so... I like the idea of viewers' short stories as well. I think that's a really, really good idea. Yeah, I saw your email this morning and I was like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. And then I had to get ready for stream, and then, oh, okay, some tea, chat, some tea. Get ready for that tea. I'm trying to stay hip. And I'm like, who wants to hear some gossip? So... my family is a ray of sunshine, as you just saw. My grandma called me this morning talking about how my nephew was gonna have to miss 3 days of school because my brother's new girlfriend is gonna have their baby in this next week, and so he has to miss 3 days of school. And then all hell broke loose. Oof, oof, oof. Finding out that she's probably going to try and steal my new baby nephew. Yeah, that's just it. That's just what it is. And then... oh yeah, it's crazy. Everyone's like freaking out now because, she might steal the baby and... leave, and then, but, they're, like, still together, like, she's not showing any, like, she's not giving anything away, like, oh, like, well, I'm gonna leave you and steal the baby, she hasn't directly come out and said that, she's, like, she's wearing, like, a wedding ring and stuff in their maternity photos, their maternity photos of her and my brother, and she's making sure that in every photo she's showing off that left finger. But my brother says that they're not engaged, they're not married, they're not anything, so... and he's wearing a ring on his right hand, not his left hand. I know, yeah, in some countries you wear your wedding ring on your right hand, so... my family wanted to go on Judge Judy. My mom wanted to take my brother to Judge Judy because he stole her truck. You ever think of those redneck, white trash families? That's my family. I'm not part of that, but that's my family. I'm trying to escape from that. I kind of sometimes wish there was, like, a TV show about my family, because I'd be like, ooh, damn, that's bad. And I'm like, I'm sitting here, like, watching it on TV, and I'm like, you can hear it going on in the background. I'm like, oh, wait. Sage's family is just as entertaining. There's a couple times where, you know, watching Rebecca's stream, you can hear, like, I guess Sage's mom or something come in, or I don't know who it is, but one of his family members just come in and just freaking screaming at him, and we're like, what is happening? Yeah, well, so is my family, so that's why my boyfriend and I just want to run away and start our own family, so, or we're done with the families. Oh, his sister and mom would scream at each other? Oh my god. Well, that's about right. That's about right. I can't be in a room with my mom longer than about 3 minutes before she starts berating me and yelling at me and yeah, trying to hit me. And not just like a spanking, but trying to straight up me. She's done it multiple times, so I don't go near her. Alright. So we done talking. We're done talking. Let's okay, we're at like 2 hours, so let's do chapter 4. Yeah, that's 4, because that's the next one's 5. Okay. Alright. Such a dumbass. Alright, chapter 4. The Scream of the Dead. The scream of a dead man gave to me that acute and added horror of Dr. Herbert West, which had harassed the latter years of our companionship. It is natural that such a thing as a dead man's scream should give horror, for it is obviously not a pleasing or ordinary occurrence, but I was used to similar experiences, hence suffered on this occasion only because of a particular circumstance. And as I have implied, it was not as the dead man himself that I became afraid. Herbert West, whose associate and assistant I was, possessed scientific interests far beyond the usual routine of a village physician. That was why, when establishing his practice in Bolton, he had chosen an isolated house near the Potter's Field. Briefly and brutally stated, West's sole absorbing interest was a secret study of the phenomenon of life and its cessation, leading toward the reanimation of the dead through injections of a solution. For this ghastly experimenting, it was necessary to have a constant supply of very fresh human bodies. Very fresh because even the last decay hopelessly damaged the brain's structure, and human because we found that the solution had to be compounded differently for different types of organisms. Scores of rabbits and guinea pigs had been killed and treated, but their trail was a blind one. West had never fully succeeded because he had never been able to secure a corpse sufficiently fresh. What he wanted were bodies from which vitality had only just departed, bodies with every cell intact and capable of receiving again the impulse toward that mode of motion called life. There was hope that the second and artificial life might be made perpetual by repetitions of the injection, but we had learned that an ordinary natural life would not respond to the action. To establish the artificial motion, natural life must be extinct. The specimens must be very fresh but genuinely dead. The awesome quest had begun when Wes and I were students in the Miskatonic University Medical School in Arkham, vividly conscious for the first time of the thoroughly mechanical nature of life. That was 7 years before, but Wes looked scarcely a day older now. He was small, blond, clean-shaven, soft-voiced, and spectacled, with only an occasional flash of a cold blue eye to tell of the hardening and growing of his character under the pressure of this terrible investigations. Our experiences have often been hideous in the extreme, the results of defective reanimation, when lumps of graveyard clay had been galvanized into morbid, unnatural, and brainless motion by various modifications of the vital solution. One thing had uttered a nerve-shattering scream. Another had risen violently, beaten us both to unconsciousness, and run amok in shocking way before it could clawed out its shallow grave and done a deed. If they're violent, why do you keep doing it? Wes had had to shoot that object. We could not get bodies fresh enough to shew any trace of reason when reanimated, so had perforce created nameless horrors. It was disturbing to think that one, perhaps two of our monsters still lived. That thought haunted us shadowingly, till finally Wes disappeared under frightful circumstances. But at the time of the scream in the cellar laboratory of the isolated Bolton cottage, our fears were subordinate to our anxiety for extremely fresh specimens. West was more avid than I, so that it was almost seemed to me that he looked half I don't know, covetously at any very healthy living physique. It was in July 1910 that the bad luck regarding specimens began to turn. I had been on a long visit to my parents in Illinois, and upon my return found Wes in a state of singular elation. He told me excitedly, in all likelihood solved the problem of freshness through an approach from an entirely new angle, that of artificial preservation. I had known that he was working on a new and highly unusual embalming compound, and was not surprised that it had turned out well. But until he explained the details, I was rather puzzled as to how such a compound could help in our work. Since the objectionable staleness of the specimens was largely due to delay occurring before we secured them, this I now saw. West had clearly recognized creating his embalming compound for future rather than immediate use, and trusting to fate to supply again some very recent and unburied corpse, as it had years before when we obtained the man killed in the Bolton prize fight. At last fate had been kind, so that on the occasion where lay in the secret cellar laboratory a corpse whose decay cannot by any possibility have begun. What would happen on reanimation, and whether we could hope for a revival of mind and reason, West did not venture to predict. The experiment should be a landmark in our studies, and we had saved the new body for my return, so that both might share the spectacle in the accustomed fashion. West told me how he had obtained the specimen. It had been a vigorous man, a well-dressed stranger just off the train on his way to transact some business with the Bolton Worson Mills. The walk through the town had been long, and by the time the traveler paused at our cottage to ask the way to the factories, his heart became greatly overtaxed. He refused to stimulate, and then suddenly dropped dead only a moment later. Wow. They literally handed it to you. In his brief conversation, the stranger had made it clear that he was unknown in Bolton, and in a search of his pockets subsequently revealed him to be one Robert Levitt of St. Louis, apparently without a family, to make instant inquiries about his disappearance. If this man cannot be restored to life, no one would know of our experiment. We buried our materials in a dense strip of woods between the house and the potter's field. If, on the other hand, he could be restored, our fame would be brilliantly and perpetually established. So without delay, West had injected into the body's wrist the compound which would hold it fresh for use after my arrival. The matter of the presumably weak heart, which to my mind imperiled the success of our experiment, did not appear to trouble West extensively. He hoped at last to obtain what he had never obtained before, a rekindled spark of reason, and perhaps a normal living creature. My water fell. So on the night of July 18th, 1910, Herbert West and I stood in the cellar laboratory and gazed at a white, silent figure beneath the dazzling arc light. The embalming compound had worked uncannily well, for as I stared fascinatedly at the sturdy, frame, which had been 2 weeks without stiffening, I was moved to seek West's assurance that the thing was really dead. This assurance he gave readily enough, reminding me that the reanimating solution was never used without careful tests as to life, since it could have no effect on any of the original vitality were present. As West proceeded to take preliminary steps, I was impressed by the vast intricacy of the new experiment, an intricacy so vast that he could trust no hand less delicate than his own. Forbidding me to touch the body, he first injected a drug in the wrist just beside the place his needle had punctured when injecting the embalming compound. This, he said, was to neutralize the compound and release the system to a normal relaxation so that the reanimating solution might freely work when injected. Slightly later, when a change and a gentle tremor seemed to affect the dead limbs, West stuffed a pillow-like object violently over the twitching face, not withdrawing it until the corpse appeared quiet and ready for our attempt at reanimation. Okay, whatever. The pale enthusiast now applied some last perfunctory test for absolute lifelessness, withdrew satisfied, and finally injected into the left arm an accurately measured amount of the vital elixir, prepared during the afternoon with a greater care than we had used since college days. When our feet were new and groping, I cannot express the wild, breathless suspense with which we waited for results on this first really fresh specimen. The first we could reasonably expect to open its lips in rational speech, perhaps to tell us to tell of what had been beyond the unfathomable abyss. West was a materialist, believing in no soul and attributing all the working of consciousness to a bodily, phenomenon. Consequently, he looked for no revelation of hideous secrets from gulfs and caverns beyond death's barrier. I did not wholly disagree with him theoretically, yet held vague instinctive remnants of the primitive faith of my forefathers, so that I could not help eyeing the corpse with a certain amount of awe and terrible expectation. Besides, I could not extract from my memory that hideous, inhumane shriek we heard on the night we tried our first experiment in the deserted farmhouse at Arkham. Very little time had elapsed before I saw the attempt. It was not to be a total failure. A touch of color came to cheeks, chalk white, and spread out under the curiously ample stubble of sandy beard. West, who had his hand on the pulse of their left wrist, suddenly nodded significantly, and almost simultaneously a mist appeared on the mirror inclined above the body's mouth. There followed a few muscular motions, and then an audible breathing and visible motion of the chest. I looked at the closed eyelids and thought I detected a quivering. Then the lids opened, shewing eyes which were gray, calm, and alive, but still unintelligent and not even curious. In a moment of fantastic whim, I whispered questions to the reddening ears, questions of other worlds, of which the memory might still be present. Subsequent terror drove them from my mind, but I think the last one, which I repeated, was, "Where have you been?" I do not know yet whether I was answered or not, for no sound came from the well-shaped mouth, but I do know that at that moment I firmly thought the thin lips moved slightly, forming syllables. I would have vocalized as only now, if that phrase had possessed any sense of or relevancy. At that moment, as I say, I was elated with the conviction that the one great goal had been attained, and that for the first time a reanimated corpse had uttered distinct words, impelled by actual reason. In the next moment, there was no doubt about the triumph. No doubt about the solution had truly accomplished, at least temporarily, its full mission of restoring rational and articulate life to the dead. But in that triumph, there came to me the greatest of all horrors. Not horror of the thing that spoke, but of the deed that I had witnessed, and of the man with whom my professional fortunes were joined. For that very fresh body, at last, writhing into full and terrifying consciousness, with eyes dilated at the memory of its last scene on earth, threw out its frantic hands in a life and death struggle with the air, and suddenly collapsing into a second and final dissolution, from which there could be no return, screamed out the cry that will ring eternally in my aching brain. "Help! Keep off, you cursed little toe-head fiend! Keep that damn needle away from me!" So wait a minute. Does that mean that Wes didn't actually be like, "Oh my god, yeah, he died of a heart attack. Oh my god," and that's why he was so keen, because he made him go sleep forever? Sleep. Ooh, I know, cheeky. I'm like, ooh, this getting good. This is interesting. This says something. Oof. It is, it's really good. You know, there's points of it, you know, like making me remember kind of like something like Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein and stuff. Little things here and there. And there's other things, you know, just kind of like, you know, trying to get them to wake up and stuff like that. But, you know, it's you know, the different takes on it is very interesting. I'm excited to see where we end up, because, you know, we're almost done. We have about 10 pages left. Yes, it does, cheeky. Let me see what it says in the beginning. I don't know why I just sounded like a lamb. I'm sorry. I don't fucking know. It's been a long, stressful week. Yeah, gothic horror. Yeah. And then when we do more of the Cthulhu stuff, it's like alien gothic. Yeah. I'm excited to keep reading these. These are really good. Oh, Cheeky, did you by chance say what your favorite author was and I missed it because I was having a panic attack? My favorite author? Oh god, what is his name? L.A. Meyer. L.A. Meyer. He was... You wish you could write like that? He said... He's very descriptive and he's, I guess to say, one to use. And he does it very well. He uses big words together. You know, like sentences, you know, just together of just big words, I guess to say. Again, we don't necessarily write like that much anymore, and it's sad. And that's probably why I can't, you know... Stephen King's good, yeah. Okay, what does Andrew Clavin write? What does he write? But L.A. Meyer is my favorite, and besides J.K. Rowling, well, the original Harry Potter, let's just leave it at that. L.A. Meyer, he wrote a series called Bloody Jack. The Merry Favorite Tales. This is how I got into pirates. Hardcore got into pirates. It's about a girl who's living in London during the Black Plague. She pretends to be a boy to get onto a ship so she, you know, doesn't die and doesn't have to go necessarily into the brothel kind of work. That's where she was heading, or dying. And so she went to pretend to be a boy, to be a ship boy. And misadventures lead from there. It is very sad to see the art of writing kind of like this dying. You know, I don't see a lot of big horror authors anymore. Like, I know Stephen King and Dean Kunitz, but other than that, you know, I don't really see a lot of horror much anymore. Don't Say a Word was a book, but it pushes more thriller. Fair enough. Dean Kunitz. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. That's, again, my intake on it. I am so mad at myself. My friends that live down the street from me, their mom knew I'd read a lot. And they're like, hey, we wanted to give you these books. And they were Stephen King and Dean Kunitz books. And I could kick myself in the ass because I needed money at one point. And I was like, oh, well, I'll never read these. And now I'm just like, you dumbass. You'll probably never get these books back. Ever. Because they were in really good condition. They were hardbacks and everything. I got rid of them because I didn't think I'd ever read them. And now I'm like, I really like Stephen King though. So like, I'm trying to buy back all the books that I sold at the time when I needed money, and I don't remember them all. So I should have took pictures at the time, but I didn't. And I'm mad at myself. Bad me, bad llama. Come on, chat. You have to know where that's from. I'm a floating head today. Hey, does this background look familiar to anybody? Hold on. It should look familiar. Hold on. Now does it look familiar? His head takes up my entire webcam. Yeah, I have a snake plushie. I know I said it earlier, Sigh, but I didn't know if you guys caught it. Harry Potter for sure, yeah. It's Snape's house. I couldn't find one of like the Hogwarts library, which frustrated the hell out of me. Like, I couldn't find a good one that I didn't have to pay for. And so I was like, I saw this, and it's just Snape's house. Also, I didn't realize that was a wand. I thought it was just a beam of light. It does look homely and inviting. It's like kind of what I kind of see my library to be as to a point. Um, just books and a light. I didn't realize he just had a light bulb. Does he really just have a lamp? You would think he would have like a candle, but he's actually using Muggle light beside the fire. All right, we're gonna have to look into that. That would be something I never noticed. He actually uses Muggle electricity. I'm such a dork. All right, all right. Let's get back to the thing, because like these chapters are really good. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this, but I will edit it to where like I'm gonna edit his fat head out, unless we want to keep it in, and make it ha 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 planet joke. Ha ha. Please help me move. Seriously, yeah. I'm so tired. I don't want to live here anymore. And then I gotta figure out how to do that, but. I think, you know, the first one I can just clip and highlight and move up. It's only about like 20 minutes. And then, but this one I will have to eventually edit. Unless you guys want to just listen to our combos in between. I can do both. It doesn't matter. Alright. Over dramatic. Okay. Chapter 5. The Horror from the Shadows. Many men have related hideous things not mentioned in print, which happened on the battlefields of the Great War. Some of these things had me faint. Others have convulsed me with devastating nausea, while still others have me tremble and look behind me in the dark. Yet, despite the worst of them, I believe I can myself relate the most hideous thing of all, the shocking, the unnatural, the unbelievable horror from the shadows. In 1915, I was a physician with the rank of first lieutenant in a Canadian regiment in Flanders. One of many Americans to precede the government itself into the gigantic struggle. I had not entered the army on my own initiative, but rather as a natural result of the enlistment of the man whose indispensable assistant I was, the celebrated Boston surgical specialist Dr. Herbert West. Dr. West had been avid for a chance to serve as a surgeon in a great war, and when the chance had come, he carried me with him almost against my will. There were reasons why I would have been glad to let the war separate us, reasons why I found the practice of medicine and the companionship of West more and more irritating. But when he had gone to Ottawa, is that how you say it? I don't know Canadian French. Sorry. And through a colleague's influence, secured a medical commission as mayor. Major. It's fine. It's been a long week. I cannot resist the imperial persuasion of one determined that I should accompany him in my usual capacity. When I say that Dr. West was avid to serve in battle, I do not mean to imply that he was either naturally warlike or anxious for the safety of civilization. Always an ice-cold intellectual machine, slight, blonde, blue-eyed, and spectacled. I think he secretly sneered at my occasional marital enthusiasm and censors of neutrality. There was, however, something he wanted in embattled Flanders, and in order to secure it, he had to assume a military exterior. What he wanted was not a thing which many persons want, but something connected with the peculiar branch of medical science which he had chosen quite clandestinely. I can say that one. To follow, in which he had achieved amazing and occasionally hideous results. It was, in fact, nothing more or less than an abundant supply of freshly killed men in every stage of dismemberment. Wow. Herbert West needed fresh bodies, because his life work was the reanimation of the dead. This work was not known to the fashionable clientele who had so swiftly built up his fame after his arrival in Boston, but was only too well known to me, who had been his closest friend and sole assistant since the old days in Miskatonic University Medical School in Arkham. It was in those college days that he had begun his terrible experiments, first on small animals and then on human bodies, shockingly obtained. There was a solution which he injected into the veins of dead things, and if they were fresh enough, they responded in strange ways. He had had much trouble in discovering the proper formula, for each type of organism was found to need a stimulus especially adapted to it. Terror stalked him when he reflected on his Partial failures, nameless things resulting from imperfect solutions or from bodies insufficiently fresh. A number of these failures had remained alive. One was in an asylum, while others had vanished, and as he thought of conceivable yet virtuously impossible eventualities, he often shivered beneath his usual I don't know. West had soon learned that absolute freshness was a prime requisite for a useful specimen, and had accordingly resorted to frightful and unnatural expedients in body snatching. In college and during our early practice together in the factory town of Bolton, my attitude toward him had been largely one of fascinated admiration. But as his boldness and methods grew, I began to develop a gnawing fear. I did not like the way he looked at healthy living bodies. And then there came a nightmarish session in the cellar laboratory when I learned that a certain specimen had been a living body when he secured it. That was the first time he had ever been able to revive the quality of rational thought in a corpse. And his success obtained at such a loathsome cost had completely hardened him. Of his methods in the intervening 5 years I dare not speak. I was held to him by sheer force of fear, and witnessed sights that no human tongue could repeat. Gradually I came to find Herbert West himself more horrible than anything he did, and that was when it dawned on me that his once normal scientific zeal for prolonging life had suddenly degenerated into a mere morbid and ghoulish curiosity and secret sense of carnal picturesqueness. His interest became a hellish and perverse addiction to the repellently and fiendishly abnormal. He gloated calmly over artificial monstrosities, which would make most healthy men drop dead from frightened disgust. He became, behind his pallid intellectually, Baudelaire of physical experiment, a languid of the tombs. My. Dangers he met unflinchingly, crimes he committed unmoved. I think the climax came when he had proved his point that rational life can be restored, and had sought new worlds to conquer by experimenting on the reanimation of detached parts of bodies. He had wild and original ideas on the independent vital properties of organic cells and nerve tissues separated from natural physiological systems, and achieved some hideous preliminary results in the form of never-dying, artificially nourished tissues obtained from the nearly hatched eggs of an indescribable tropical reptile. That's how fucking dinosaurs are made, chat. 2 biological points he was exceedingly anxious to settle. First, whether any amount of consciousness and rational action be possible without the brain proceeding from the spinal cord and various nerve centers, and second, whether any kind of ethereal, intangible relations distinct from the material cells may exist in linking the surgically separated parts of what has previously been a single living organism. All this research work required a supply of freshly slaughtered human flesh, and that was why Herbert West had entered the Great War. Oh, this is dark. The phantasmal, unmentionable thing occurred one midnight late in March 1915 in a field hospital behind the lines of St. Eloi. I wonder even now if I can have been other than the demonic dream of delirium. West had a private laboratory in an east room of the barn-like temporary edifice, assigned to him on the plea that he was devastating new and radical methods for the treatment of hopeless cases of maiming. There he worked like a butcher in the midst of his gory wares. I can never get used to the levity with which he handled and classified certain things. At times he actually did perform marvels of surgery for the soldiers, but his chief delights were of a less public and philanthropic kind, requiring many explanations of sounds which seemed peculiar even amidst the babble of the damned. Among these sounds were frequent revolver shots, surely not uncommon on a battlefield, but distinctly uncommon in a hospital. Dr. West's reanimated specimens were not meant for a long existence or a large audience. Besides human tissue, West employed much of the reptile embryo tissue, which he had cultivated with such singular results. It was better than human material for maintaining life in organless fragments, and that was now my friend's chief activity. In a dark corner of the laboratory, over an incubating burner, he kept a large covered vat full of this reptilian cell matter, which multiplied and grew puffily and hideously. On the night of which I speak, we had a splendid new specimen. A man, at once physically powerful and of such high mentality that a sensitive nervous system was assured. It was rather ironic that he was the officer who had helped West to his commission, and who was now to have been our associate. Moreover, he in the past secretly studied the theory of reanimation to some extent under West. Major Sir Eric Moreland Clapham Lee, DSO, was the greatest surgeon in our division. Try saying that 5 times fast. And had been hastily assigned to the St. Eloi sector. When news of the heavy fighting reached headquarters, he had come to an airplane piloted by the intrepid Lieutenant Ronald Hill, only to be shot down when directly over his destination. The fall had been spectacular and awful. Hill was unrecognizable afterwards, but the wreck yielded up the great surgeon in a nearly decapitated but otherwise intact condition. West had greedily seized the lifeless thing, which had once been his friend and fellow scholar, and I shuddered when he finished severing the head, placed it in a hellish vat of pulpy reptile tissue to preserve it for future experiments, and proceeded to treat the decapitated body on the operating table. He injected new blood, joined certain veins, arteries, and nerves at the headless neck, and closed the ghastly aperture with engrafted skin from an unidentified specimen, which had borne an officer's uniform. I knew what he wanted to see if this highly organized body could exhibit without its head any of the signs of mental life which had distinguished Sir Eric Moreland Clapham Lee. Oh my God. Once a student of reanimation, the silent trunk was now gruesomely called upon to exemplify it. I could see Herbert West under the sinister electric light as he injected his reanimating solution into the arm of the headless body. The scene I cannot describe. I should faint if I tried it. For there is madness in a room full of classified charnel things, with blood and lesser human debris, almost ankle deep on the slimy floor, and with hideous reptilian abnormalities sprouting, bubbling, and baking over a winking bluish-green specter of dim flame in a far corner of shadows. This specimen, as West repeatedly observed, had a splendid nervous system. Much was expected of it, and as a few twisting motions began to appear, I see the feverish interest on West's face. He was ready, I think, to see proof of his increasingly strong opinion that consciousness, reason, and personality can exist independently of the brain. That man has no central connective spirit, but is merely a machine of nervous matter, each section more or less complete in itself. In one triumphant demonstration, West was about to relegate the mystery of life to the category of myth. The body now twisted more vigorously, and beneath our avid eyes commenced to heave in a frightful way. The arms stirred disquietingly, the legs drew up, and various muscles contracted in a repulsive kind of writhing. Then the headless thing threw out its arms in a gesture which was unmistakably one out of desperation. An intelligent desperation, apparently sufficient to prove every theory of Herbert West. Certainly the nerves were recalling the man's last act of life, the struggle to get free of the falling airplane. What followed I shall never positively know. It may have been wholly an hallucination from the shock caused at that instant of the sudden and complete destruction of the building in a cataclysm of German shellfire. Who can gainsay it? Since West and I were the only proved survivors, West liked to think that before his recent disappearance, but there were times when he could not, for it was odd that we both had the same hallucination. The hideous occurrence itself was very notable only for what it implied. The body on the table had risen with a blinded, terrible groping, and we had heard a sound. I should not call that sound a voice, for it was too awful. And yet, its timbre was just the most awful thing about it. Neither was its message. It had merely screamed, "Jump, Ronald! For God's sake, jump!" The awful thing was its source, Fred come from the large covered vat in the ghoulish corner of a crawling shadow. So, I mean, if how they're saying it, if it's true, and he's saying it, it would make sense. Futurama, for instance, Agnew, kind of like how they have his character Agnew. You know, you're cleaning the top of the head. It's like a bloody chicken. It's like a bloody chicken. You cut the chicken's head off. This is gonna get gruesome, chat. You cut the chicken's head off. The chicken's body literally just keeps running around. Keeps running around. Just, that's a chicken. Its head's just lying there, but it's a chicken, and it keeps going. It goes for about 20 minutes or something. And, so if that's true, then the reptilian scale things that the head's in that's preserving it. Because, okay, so if you're decapitated, everything still works. I think for a good few minutes, you still are there. Which, yeah, sounds horrible, but I think that's true. I think. And so, like, if that's true that the stuff was preserving it, and he cleaned up the head, I mean, it depends on how long after it took. 20 minutes, and yeah, I could see where he could get up and be like, jump, Ron, jump! Oh, no. There's a reason it's a saying. Running around like a headless chicken? Yeah, it's a thing. Whenever you take a chicken, pop his head off, the head just kind of lays there and it twitches, but the body, if you watch it, it will run around. It'll run around for like 10, 20 minutes, and then it'll just, whoop, right on the ground. See, chat? Educational. I teach you things sometimes. Also creepy stuff, but whatever. That's creepy? Yeah, it's really fucking creepy, actually. It's really creepy. I've never actually seen it done. But I know that's what happens. Cause I've already told my boyfriend, I'm like, when you kill the chickens to make chicken nuggies, you do it away from me and the squishies. So, I mean, I know it's where they need to know where the nuggies come from, but they don't need to see it. I'm trying to think of any other weird animal stuffs. But yeah, it's like that, and it's very interesting, you know. Also, Herbert West now sounds like a psychopath. So, you know. It was only like 5 or 7 minutes? Alright, fair enough, yeah. I don't remember seeing it. I remember at one point, we did a road trip. Not a road trip, a field trip, because I was in school, to, like, a farm. Okay, I am this big, and everybody else is, like, that big, so I'm, like, really tiny, so I couldn't see anything. So, like, my teachers had to, like, literally pick me up and be like, okay, can you see? And I'm like, thank you, I'm little, I just want to see stuff. Happily eats a headless chicken nugget? Exactly. Exactly. Just sits and, be like, I wonder if this chicken, yeah, you know what? Just dip it in some McNugget sauce. It's a good McNugget. That's why I'm just like, I kind of stare at the chickens and Sea of Thieves. I'm just like, give me made into McNuggets. If you can't fight me, chicken. So yeah. There's no chicken in McNuggets. Yeah, I don't care. You know, you know, people say it is chicken. It is chicken. It's just how they make the chicken is, and the parts of the chicken they use is less to be desired. Because it's the throwaway scraps of the chicken. It's still chicken though. Kids don't care. Nobody really actually cares. You know, but it's just the scraps that you throw away the chickens. Yes, McNuggies. I would like headless McNuggies, please. That was my chicken's uncle. Yeah, that was his uncle. Actually, that's his entire family. That was funny. Because I can also, like, think of that, like, making some, like, chicken teriyaki. Like, ooh, who we eating today? And I'm like, ooh, we're eating Ralph. The chicken uncle. The chicken neighbor. Yeah, we share dark neighbor. Because usually, well, that's what you kind of have to do. I mean, you have to be, you know, because again, I live in Texas, so we hunt a lot for food, whether it be deer. You can eat hogs. You just have to be careful of the grime and if they have like disease and all that stuff. Usually, you just kill them to kill them because God, they're a fucking nuisance here. I promise they're a nuisance. They can make they can dig a hole the size of me, and I'm 5'2", so it's gross. And it ruins farmlands and stuff like that. I just want to let you know that. And you can do turkeys, doves, fishing stuff. Have I gone hunting? I personally have not shot an animal, if that's what you mean. But I know my boyfriend goes hunting and stuff, and we were gonna go this past year, but everybody got sick. He had his tea stuff to do, and they had already shot like two bucks. No, he did 2 bucks. He did a buck. I don't think they got anything else. I think you can only do does and spikes. It's still on. Hold on. Does and spikes. When I learned that, Cheeky, I kind of freaked out. Yeah, when I learned that I was the same height as Rebecca, I was just like, oh, no way. Hold on, I have to turn off my light. I didn't realize it was on. Let me see. Does that change? Let's see if it changed my lighting a little bit. That doesn't do anything. Okay. I didn't realize I had my my light on. It's a new light bulb. I have not personally gone hunting, but I'm excited to go hunting because deers are good. Okay, if you don't want to hear deer meat, venison is really yummy. Yeah, I guess they're moonlights. Hold on, the box is like right here. I lied. No, wait, hold on. The box is like right over here. Oh! I think I pulled something yesterday. This is a fantastic light bulb. Okay, see, it's a 60-watt bulb, 8.8 LED, and it's 800 lumens. So here's the thing, I can't do like 900 lumens, and then it's eye comfort. It's like a white light instead of like the harsh lights that like at schools and stuff like that, Walmarts and stuff like that have. I can't do those lights for long periods of time. It literally gives me a headache. So that explains high school. And you can control it with an app. It's fantastic. I'm not sponsored. I just really love this light bulb. Yeah, you're not used to bright lights. This light is really nice because you can control it. You can do like candlelight. You can do night light, which I just sit in the night light and do nothing. And then you can turn it. You can change the brightness of it, you know, to depending on what you're feeling. And it's really, really nice. I love this light bulb. I don't know how much it was. My dad bought 2. He has one out in the front room, and I have one in my room because I couldn't take this light bulb, and I really wanted to change it. I think it was like $30. $20-$30, but the damn thing is supposed to last forever. Guaranteed to last 5 years based on up to 3 hours of usage per day. Alright. And it can last up to 22 years. No, definitely, Cheeky, it would definitely be something that you should look into, because it has different colors. It's not just a, like, white light, but I would definitely look into it, especially if you don't like bright lights, because it's very, very good. Yeah. And you can get different colors. Purple, red, blue. I think there's different colors that you can get. You can't use room light currently? Yeah, that's how I was. And then I used to live by lamplight as well. And then I got my light, and I love this light bulb. But yeah, it looks like most likely, chat, we'll finish up this story. It doesn't look like we'll get through Call of Cthulhu today, which is fine. Maybe I can pick up the Call of Cthulhu game soon, so that way we can actually read this and then just play the game. Because that was what I was intending for us to do. But again, I didn't want to drive across town. I was very stressed yesterday. I just want to go home, eat my nuggies, Chick-fil-A nuggies, should be specific, and then eat my cookies. That's all I wanted. Yeah, if you want, I can post, yeah, I'm not done yet. We still have a bit to go. But, I'll post it in Discord, after stream. When I remember. If not, just be like, ZD, you didn't do the thing. Do the thing. And I'm like, okay, I'll do the thing. Sorry. Yeah, just post a link. Okay. Yeah, I can post an Amazon link. Okay. Chapter 6. Last chapter, chat. Last chapter. And then we'll probably chat for a little bit, and then we can, and then call it. So, the Tomb Legions. When Dr. Herbert West disappeared a year ago, the Boston police questioned me closely. They suspected that I was holding something back, and perhaps suspected graver things, but I could not tell them the truth, because they would not have believed it. They knew, indeed, that West had been connected with activities beyond the credence of ordinary men, for his hideous experiments in the reanimation of dead bodies had long been too extensive to admit of perfect secrecy. But the final soul-shattering, catastrophic held elements of demonic fantasy, which makes it even that worded weirdly, even me doubt the reality of what I saw. I was West's closest friend and only confidential assistant. We had met years before in medical school, and from the first I had shared his terrible researches. He had slowly tried to perfect a solution, which, injected into the veins of the newly deceased, would restore life, a labor demanding an abundance of fresh corpses, and therefore involving the most unnatural actions. Still more shocking were the products of some of the experiments, gristly masses of flesh that had been dead, but that West waked to a blind, brainless, nauseous animation. Those were the usual results, for in order to be reawakened, the mind, it was necessary to have specimens so absolutely fresh that no decay could possibly affect the delicate brain cells. This need for very fresh corpses had been West's mortal undoing. They were hard to get, and one awful day he had secured his specimen while it was still alive and vigorous. A struggle, a needle, and a powerful alkaloid had transformed it to a very fresh corpse, and the experiment had succeeded for a brief and memorable moment. But West had emerged with a soul callous and seared, in a hardened eye, which sometimes glanced with a kind of hideous and calculating appraisal at men of especially sensitive brain and especially vigorous physique. Toward the last, I became acutely afraid of West, and he began to look at me that way. People did not seem to notice his glances, but they noticed my fear, and after his disappearance, used that as a basis for some absurd suspicions. West, in reality, was more afraid than I, for his abominable pursuits entailed a life of furtiveness and dread of every shadow. Partly it was the police he feared, but sometimes his nervousness was deeper and more nebulous, touching on certain indescribable things into which he had injected a morbid life, from which he had not seen that life depart. He usually finished these experiments with a revolver, but a few times he had not been quick enough. There was a first specimen on whose rifle grave marks of clawing were later seen. There was also that Arkham professor's body, which had done cannibal things before it had been captured and thrust unidentified into a madhouse cell at Sefton, where it beat the walls for 16 years. Most of the other possibly surviving results were things less easy to speak of. For in years, West's scientific zeal had degenerated to an unhealthy and fantastic mania. He had spent his chief skill in vitalizing not entire human bodies, but isolated parts of bodies, or parts joined to organic matter. Other than human, it had become fiendishly disgusting by the time he disappeared. Many of the experiments could not even be hinted at in print. The Great War, through which both of us served as surgeons, had intensified the sight of West. In saying that West's fear of his specimens were nebulous, I have in mind particularly its complex nature. Part of it came merely from knowing of the existence of such nameless monsters, while another part arose from apprehension of the bodily harm they might, under certain circumstances, do to him. Their disappearance added horror to the situation of them. All West knew the whereabouts of only one, the pitiful asylum thing. Then there was a more subtle fear, a very fantastic sensation resulting from a curious experiment in the Canadian Army in 1915. West, in the midst of a severe battle, had reanimated Major Sir Eric Moreland Clapham Lee, DSO, a fellow physician who knew about his experiments and could have duplicated them. The head had been removed so that the possibilities of quasi-intelligent life in the trunk might be investigated. Just as the building was wiped out by a German shell, there had been a success. The trunk had removed intelligently, and unbelievably to relate, we were both sickeningly sure that articulate sounds had come from the detached head as it lay in a shadowy corner of the laboratory. The shell had been merciful in a way, but West could never feel as certain as he wished that we two were the only survivors. He used to make shuddering conjectures about the possible actions of a headless physician with the power of reanimating the dead. West's last quarters were in a venerable house of much elegance, overlooking one of the oldest burying grounds in Boston. He had chosen the place for purely symbolic and fantastically aesthetic reasons. Since most of the instruments were of the colonial period and therefore of little use to scientific seeking very fresh bodies, the laboratory was in a sub-cellar secretly constructed by imported workmen and contained a huge incinerator for the quiet and complete disposal of such bodies, or fragments and synthetic mockeries of bodies, as might remain from the morbid experiments and unhallowed amusements of the owner. During the excavation of the cellar, the workmen had struck some exceedingly ancient masonry, undoubtedly connected with the old burying ground. Yeah, your house is haunted, by the way. Yet too far deep to correspond with any known therein. After a number of calculations, West decided that it was represented some secret chamber beneath the tomb of the Averils, where the last instrument had been made in 1768. I was with him when he studied the nitrous, dripping walls laid bare by the spades and mattocks of the men, and was prepared for the gruesome thrill which would attend the uncovering of centrified grave secrets. But for the first time, West knew timidly conquered his natural curiosity, and he betrayed his degenerating fiber by ordering the masonry left intact and plastered over. Thus it remained till that final hellish night. Part of the walls of the secret laboratory, I speak of West's decadence, but must add that it was purely mental and intelligible thing. Outwardly, he was the same to the last, calm, cold, slight, and yellow-haired, with spectacled blue eyes and a general aspect of youth, which years and fears could never seem to change. He seemed calm, even when he thought of that clawed grave and looked over his shoulder, even when he thought of the carnivorous thing that gnawed and pawed at Sefton's bars. The end of Herbert West began one evening in our joint study when he was dividing his curious glance between the newspaper and me. A strange headline item had struck at him from the crumpled pages, and a nameless Titan claw had seemed to reach down through 16 years. Something fearsome and incredible had happened at Sefton Asylum, 50 miles away, stunning the neighborhood and baffling the police. In the small hours of the morning, a body of silent men entered the grounds, and their leader had aroused the attendants. He was a menacing military figure who talked without moving his lips, and whose voice seemed almost ventriloquially connected with an immense case he carried. His expressionless face was handsome to the point of radiant beauty, but had shocked the superintendent when the hall light fell on it, for it was a wax face, with eyes of painted glass. Some nameless accident had befallen this man. A larger man guided his steps, a repellent hulk whose bluish face seemed half eaten away by some unknown malady. The speaker had asked for the custody of the cannibal monster committed that from Arkham 16 years before, and upon being refused, giving a signal which precipitated a shocking riot. The fiends had beaten, trampled, and bitten every attendant who did not flee, killing 4 and finally succeeding in the liberation of the monster. Those victims who could recall the event without hysteria swore that the creatures had acted less than men, than unthinkable automaton guided by the wax-faced leader. By the time help could be summoned, every trace of the men and of their mad charge had vanished. From the hour of reading this item until midnight, West sat almost paralyzed. At midnight, the doorbell rang, startling him fearfully. All the servants were asleep in the attic, so I answered the bell. As I have told the police, there was no wagon in the street, but only a group of strange-looking figures bearing a large square box, which they deposited in the hallway after one of them had grunted in a highly unnatural voice. Express. Prepaid. They filed out of the house with a jerky tread, and as I watched them go, I had an odd idea that they were turning toward the ancient cemetery on which the back of the house abutted. When I slammed the door after them, West came downstairs and looked at the box. It was about 2 feet square and bore West's correct name and present address. It also bore the inscription from Eric Moreland Claflin Lee, St. Eloi, Flanders. 6 years before, in Flanders, a shell hospital had fallen upon the headless, reanimated trunk of Dr. Claflin Lee, and upon the detached head, which perhaps had uttered articulate sounds. West was not even excited now. His condition was more ghastly. Quickly, he said, "It's the finish, but let's incinerate this." We carried the thing down to the laboratory listening. I do not remember many particulars. You can imagine my state of mind, but it is a vicious lie to say it was Herbert West's body, which I put into the incinerator. We both inserted the whole unopened box, closed the door, and started the electricity, nor did any sound come from the box after all. It was West who first noted the falling plaster on that part of the wall where the ancient tomb masonry had been covered up. I was going to run, but he stopped me. Then I saw a small black, arbiter? Felt a ghoulish wind of ice and smelled the carnal bowels of a putrid earth. There was no sound, but just then the electric lights went out, and I saw outlined against some rock of the netherworld a horde of silent, toiling things, which only insanity, or worse, could create. Their outlines were human, semi-human, fractionally human, and not human at all. The horde was grotesquely... They were removing the stones quietly, one by one, from the centured wall, and then, as the breach became large enough, they came out into the laboratory in a single file, led by a stalking thing with a beautiful head made of wax, a sort of mad-eyed monstrosity. Behind the leader seized on Herbert West. West did not resist or utter a word sound. Then they all sprang at him and tore him to pieces before my eyes, bearing the fragments away into the subterranean vault of fabulous abominations. West's head was carried off by the wax-head leader, who wore a Canadian officer's uniform. As it disappeared, I saw that the blue eyes behind the spectacles were hideously blazing with their first touch of frantic, visible emotion. Servants found me unconscious in the morning. West was gone. The incinerator contained only unidentifiable ashes. Detectives have questioned me, but what can I say? This theft and tragedy, they will not connect with West. Not that, nor the men with the box, whose existence they deny. I told them of the vault, and they pointed to the unbroken plaster wall, and laughed. So I told them no more. They imply that I am a madman, or a murderer. Probably I am mad. But I might not be mad if those accursed tomb legions had not been so silent. And that ends Herbert West. That was really, really good. That was a really good story. I really like that one. That was really good. I want to read Call of Cthulhu, but I don't think I have another story in me. So. It didn't take long to read. It only did take about 10 minutes. But I can feel my voice starting to get hoarse. So I only usually do about 2.5 hours on reading. But I was like, oh yeah, we'll finish. Like, we finished Alice in Wonderland, I think, in 4 hours. I can see how this would later influence Mary Shelley and George Romero. That's what I was thinking. So do you think it was supernatural or not? Oh, that's a good question, Sai. I think it was. I think it was. I mean, there's little things that it seems like, you know, because they're on, like, cemetery lands and stuff like that, where I can kind of see where it's supernatural. You know, science does play a great part of it, but I also think, you know, paranoia can also get the best of you to a point as well, but the fact that his experiments came back to literally haunt him, and they attacked other people, and it was not just him or his assistant that they went after. I think truly it was a thing, and I think it was supernatural. I don't know. I don't know. Let's find out. I don't know if Shelly came first. To be honest, I don't know. Yes. Frankenstein did come first. Frankenstein was published in 1818, before H.P. Lovecraft was even born. I think he was born in... I don't know, the 2018... Yeah, he was born in 1890. So he wasn't even born yet. She died right before he was born, about 40 years before he was born. So yeah, Mary Shelley came first. You were right, I didn't know that. So yeah, so H.P. Lovecraft definitely took things. I really want to show you guys this picture. It's so cool. Wow, that's a... My phone got really bright. Hold on. Was Lovecraft surgeon before he became a writer? It's interesting. Yeah, I think it definitely depends on who's reading the book to tell whether, you know, it's supernatural or not. You know, it's like, do you believe in the supernatural just in general? Is kind of the first question you kind of ask, because it's like, okay, well, do you believe in zombies? Do you really believe that scientifically, you know, the dead could be brought back? I do. I believe in zombies. I hardcore believe that you can. I don't necessarily think they'll die and come back, but I do believe that there's an infection to cause a ravenous zombie thing. And it made sense, because aggressively, you know, you wake up aggressive, you know? You lose all sense of who you were. And that's the point. No, you're fine, Si. Don't even worry about it. As you can see, I am also poor in English, and I'm from Texas. Born and raised. Yeah, you have the mad scientist story, or you have a supernatural story, and I think it's a mixture of both, and I think it's just, you know, I think it's a little bit of both. I think he's blaming it on the paranormal, oh my god, fuck, can't even word anymore. Paranoia, I'm trying to say paranormal, paranoia of working with West. My god, brain. He's working with West, and he's just freaked out, panicked, stressed, and paranoid about what he's doing and getting caught. And I think it also goes in with some of that. But I also do believe that, you know, they do come back, and they're just like, I mean, because you can't deny that the kid went missing, you know, and the other ones, the ones that sat up, the ones that, you know, and the fact that other people saw them. 4 other people saw them at the hospital, at the asylum. So you're either saying 4 other people who saw the same thing, blue eye, you know, that the description of West keeps coming up, and I was gonna ask about that, but that was odd. But the fact that they had like this same wax face like description for this one guy that everybody had who didn't talk to each other in a time span was kind of like, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was trying to say paranoia, but I couldn't. It depends. I think truthfully for me, I think it depends on how they died. Most of the time, like, if you're coming back as a zombie, you're good, you know, you're gonna be guttural, you're gonna be carnal, you're gonna be not necessarily brains, but you're gonna want food. And with that, you get the carnal hunger, you know, like a tiger would. Like, I'm hungry, I want to eat, I just want to eat meat. And, humans are the best meat. Yeah. But it depends. I think a lot of, like, if you would come back, I think you would be confused and scared. And if you can't, like, actually... I want to say pronunciate words, but word in general, you know, if you can't do that, you can't give out, like, help me or any kind of words, but they could. And that was the weird thing, and the fact that they were reliving their last memory, which actually doesn't really surprise me if that's, you know, like, what would happen. You relive that last memory, you relive, like, what's happening, and then you're like, and then you jolt yourself to, I'm not there. What happened? Kind of thing. So you're definitely scared, you know, but again, it depends, I think, on how you died. He did revel. I think you know, this is really good. It's like, you know, we're having a book discussion now, you know, it's like, what the different things, and I love that. I love the fact that you can do that. If it was a violent death, I'd want to kill the bastard that killed me. Haunt his ass. Ooh, ghosts flip on and off the lights all the time. There was a video I was watching. Some girl, poor thing, I swear to God. You know, she was like a baby. She was like 19, 20 years old. And, she was just sitting in her room. She was just like on her head. I'm like, ooh, y'all asked me, and I was going to show you what kind of foundation I used and all of this stuff. And then her closet door opened, and she's just like, what? She goes over and she opens this closet door, right? And, you know, it's one of those ones that people can't hide in because it's, like, just narrow enough to put a hanger, kind of, like, narrow. Like, you would be able to see if someone was there. And it showed, you know, if anybody, and then there's shelves. And then, like, it closed again. Or she closed it, and then, like, her light started flickering, and then her door started open. She grabbed her phone, she's like, oh! She's like... Everyone's like, poor girl, she just went to show her makeup. His name is right up there with Shelley and H.R. Geiger. I will definitely need to... Okay, that took us a while. That took us about 2.5 hours to read. We'll do 2... Yeah, we'll do 55. We'll figure it out here. Sorry. Oh, H.R. Geiger. Yeah, I think 6 chapters, yeah. I mean, and they were pretty long, too. You know, and they were good-sized chapters. Like I said, I'd read another one, but it seems like I'm about to lose my fucking voice. And we still have to play Fallout tomorrow. I mean, it was... Do 41, so 30 plus pages? I can't... Nah, not 30. 20... 25 pages? I would show... Like I said, I can't show you guys anything of the book. I can take a picture of it and put it in Discord, but I cannot show you anything on stream. For copyright reasons. Other than that, I can read you the stories all day long. So that's kind of one thing that I did learn, because they're like, good luck with your project, and I'm like, thank you. I'm like, I literally want to find other books by the publishers. Because they were absolutely fantastic in answering my question. Because I was just like, hey, you know, I wanted to get written permission to stream a live reading of me reading this book. And they're like, well, first off, most of his stories are like, you know, public domain. I was like, I knew that, but I didn't know about my book. I didn't want to. They're like, just the cover, the word placement in the book, in the photos. Because there's one that in Call of Cthulhu, like, fucking gorgeous. I want to color it. That's how badly I like it. That you just need to, like, you know, that's copyrighted. So I'm like, oh, So basically, we can do books. It's just you can't books in the public domain. You just can't show if it's an actual book that's not from 70, 80 years ago. Then you have to you can't show anything of it. You can't show it on stream, and then you should be fine. So I know the fact that they replied, because I was just laying in bed and stuff like that. I was going to bed, and I was just like, my email went off, and I was like, okay, let me just check it really quick. And I checked, and the dude replied, and I was like, what? Like, I was so surprised they even replied back. I was like, okay, well, if they don't do it, it's fine. We'll just read them online. It's not a big deal. His stuff's in the public domain anyway. And I was checking through to make sure that they were all the same stories. So. Yeah, well, I can show it. And, like, if we did, instead of the background, I had the actual book up. I was thinking about doing that, but then I came up with this idea. I'm a floating head. I'll try and fix it for next time we do one of these, I swear. I promise. But we're learning. This is how you learn. I can't show you the book. Okay, if I purchased a book that's not from 80 years ago, or that's in the public domain, I cannot show you the book for copyright reasons, but we can have the story. As long as the story is in public domain, I can have it up on stream. So it's fine. I just can't show you my book. So I really like this background as well for personal rating. I think this is our background. We need to thank Snape for it. So we'll probably keep this one. I think I will do a little bit better for my floating head thing though. I might bump it up a little bit, but I also might on-zoom the camera a bit whenever I do these. You even imagine it raining. I could probably do a background noise of rain. We could probably do that. Let me as like an ambient music of rain. Kind of like this. Hold on. Kind of like that music. I mean, I think rain would do really well, because I don't want to do too much creepy music, because I know some of you guys, use these readings to go to sleep. I've had several followers tell me that they use some of my videos to go to sleep too. So, which is fine. I don't mind. That's not creepy to me. I promise. But I think ambient rain would do really well in the background, because it does help you become sleepy and relaxed, especially if you're like just listening to this to go to bed, which is fine. I don't mind if you guys fall asleep. I really, really don't. I mean, that means you feel safe and relaxed, which I want. And that's the point. You're gonna hear me go, "Ooh, girl, no," a lot. But, you know, it's nice. A kind of ambiance, yeah. I think a nice rain ambiance would do really well. So that's definitely something I'll look into, finding a nice little background ambiance. Okay, so I have an Alexa, and the thing is, I don't have her plugged in, because I feel like sometimes I would accidentally say Alexa, and then, or something, and then she would try and Google something, and it's not something I even said, and then, you know, I have to, like, throw her out a window, because I'm like, shut up! Like, that's not what we were talking about! Siri interrupts me too. Yeah, I was watching, one of my friends, Anatori, she was streaming the other night. Yeah, the other night. It was, Tuesday. And she was just like, she was mocking Google, because her phone was sitting right there. She's like, if I tell Google to do something, Google's gonna Google something. And so she was mocking it, and Google was like, we cannot find your request. She's like, see? Told you. Told you. And I was like, yeah. Google's horrible at that. No, Alexa, shut up! Just shove her out my window. It's, shh, good night. Just kind of like put a pillow over. Take a nap. But we are. I don't have... Hold on, I will be right back, chat. Ow, my leg. Could I see myself read my own horror fiction out there for funsies? I could. Yeah, I could. Alright, so I have like 1,700 different bookmarks because they're like 49 cents and whatever. But when is the next HP Lovecraft reading gonna be? Okay, so I'm not trying to like sound like I'm like, you should sub to me, but I do make this a sub incentive to reading. Reading is a sub incentive, and I don't want to sound like, well, we have to do this, but it is, because I have to go buy the books most of the time. So, but we're at 3 subs, and once we hit 5 subs again, I will do another reading. Because what I've determined is when we get 5 subs and we keep 5 subs, every time we have 5 subs, just 5. We'll do a reading each month of something. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people do it with like podcasts and stuff like that, but I kind of just like sitting like once a month and just reading. I think I'm gonna use this one. I think I'm gonna use the leather bookmark. See, I also, because I can't show this one because fuck, this is old. Even because this one doesn't have. Go away, doggo. Yeah, this one doesn't have a copyright problem because it doesn't matter right now. I bought it for $2 at half price books, but it's a 2-in-1. We have Dracula, and then you flip it over, and we got Frankenstein. So 2 books in one. It's very large, as you can see. I don't know where it stops. Bird. Go away, dog! Alright. Frankenstein is not long. Dracula is longer than Frankenstein. Wow, Dracula's fucking long, guys. Okay, Frankenstein is 282 pages, and Dracula is 500 pages. Holy bejesus. Oh my god. Okay, well, that's good to know. I have too many books right now. Hold on. Call of Cthulhu. Alright, I'm using my leather bookmark. Lord of the Rings books were thicker than that. Lord of the Rings books are a hell to read. You can't ever pronunciate any of their names. Aww. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you guys feel open enough to talk with me about books, and because I love it. I love encouraging people to read books. A lot of people just don't take the time to read books anymore, and that makes me sad. But let's see. Is anybody on to raid? Come on, I missed chat. Hold on. You still read books? I know a lot of people still read books, but you know, a lot of people read digital books, ebooks, stuff like that. I like to print. I like print books, just because I like them. Yeah, I saw that Luxie was on. I figured we could go raid Luxie because I think she's just chatting as well. So we can go raid Luxie because she's pretty awesome. She's really nice. I don't know what she's gonna be playing today. I know she's just chatting at the moment, so we'll go raid Luxie. But I'm gonna go rest, take a break, go beat the crap out of my dad, and you know, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not really gonna beat the crap out of him. I promise. I might just throw a shoe at him or something. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I saw that Luxie was on. Luxie's really the only one I was thinking about raiding. But yeah, we'll go raid Luxie. If you've never participated in one of my streams or my raids, I haven't raided in a while, so you know, zombies are coming. Zombies, whatever. Zombie raid. It's your dad. Yeah. Well, he's a butthole. So, thank you guys. I'm gonna say my outro here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, evening, morning, whatever it may be. I hope you have a good one. I should be back tomorrow. Again, I'm not dying anymore, so it's fine. And stuff like that. So, like I said, I'll be back tomorrow with Fallout, and I'm gonna be working on achievements. So, I'm hoping. Okay, so next week I'm gonna probably focus really hard on Assassin's Creed. We're gonna probably play Brotherhood this next week, so I just want to let you guys know that this next week is probably just gonna be Assassin's Creed Brotherhood for hitting 100,000 gamer score. So, aw, thank you, Sai. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. I really do. You know, I'm glad that everyone enjoyed this particular one because last one wasn't so great, but I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. It really encourages me to keep going and keep doing that kind of stuff. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Y'all come back now here, and I will see y'all in the next stream. Let's go raid! I forgot how to raid! Alright. Right now. Alright, let me get to stop streaming.